Hey, it's Kyle, and today I'm going to be talking about Brave New World by Huxley. Obviously, this is a classic book. Most people have heard of it. If you haven't read it, you've probably seen it referenced in other books or movies and stuff. The reason I want to talk about this book is not because I love it, it's because I absolutely hated this book. Despised it. It was one of the most boring books I ever read. I really just finished it because it was a classic. I felt like I just need to read it. And that's partly what I want to talk about today, is people's attitudes towards classics. One, I don't want this video to scare y'all from reading a book that's termed a classic. I think classics are very worthwhile, especially ones like Brave New World or 1984, countless other books like that are constantly referenced in other works of either literature, movies, TV shows, songs. There are certain books that reach such a level of importance, you almost have to read them so you'll get all these references that you've been missing to that work in other things you love. So maybe one of your favorite movies might be making a reference to 1984, and you just don't realize it until you read 1984. Or one of your favorite books might be referencing Brave New World, but you don't really know it because you haven't read that book. So read classics. If you have a chance, I try to read as many as possible, because you really do notice a lot of things in other works that you didn't notice because you hadn't read that specific book. But at the same time, I think some people have an attitude towards classics that they almost feel embarrassed if either they dislike a book that's turned a classic or if they haven't read it. So a lot of people with books like Brave New World or Moby Dick, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, To Kill a Mockingbird, the list goes on and on. If they haven't read it, they must feel embarrassed if they haven't read it. So there's a lot of people, oh yeah, I read Moby Dick, I've read, that work, or I've read, all of Shakespeare's plays and stuff. If you haven't read something, don't be afraid to, I haven't had a chance to read that, or didn't think that book sounded interesting, I just haven't got around to it. Don't feel like you have to lie about reading a book just because it's a classic. If you haven't read it, just admit it. There's nothing wrong with not reading a specific book. At the same time, like I said, just because something is termed a classic, don't use that as an excuse not to read. I think a lot of people now who kind of got into books by reading, more current literature, be it books like The Hunger Games or Harry Potter or Twilight or countless sci-fi books, or books by Ken Follett or John Grisham, Tom Clancy. The list goes on and on. When you read more contemporary literature, they almost take attitudes towards classics is stuff you read in school. If I didn't read it in high school and college, I'm never going to read that. You're missing the boat. Sure, I did not like Brave New World, but it's the rare exception. That's one of the times when I read a classic. I really enjoy it, probably because it didn't become a classic by accident. Even Brave New World, which I didn't enjoy, the book was making certain good points. I just found the characters boring and the storyline boring, but it means there wasn't anything worthwhile in a book. So don't use the excuse not to read a book just because it is a classic. It just means it's a really important work of literature, and odds are it's probably a pretty good work of literature. So, take a chance and widen your horizons and read some classics. I'm not saying stop reading contemporary books. Read contemporary books. There's a lot of great books being written now, but mix it up. Read some classics, read some contemporaries. Like I said, widen your horizon and read lots of stuff. Also, like I said, if you haven't read a classic, don't lie until you have it. Same way with me and Brave New World. If you read a classic and you didn't enjoy it, don't feel like you have to lie to people and say like, oh, I loved Fahrenheit 451, or I loved Moby Dick, or I loved Pride and Prejudice. If you didn't like it, say, I just didn't really get into the storyline, or I found the characters boring, I thought it was a little too long. Whatever you thought was about, that's your opinion. Don't let other people intimidate you into feeling like you have to say, oh, I love that book, just because of its stature as a classic. So I'm proud to say I read Brave New World, and I absolutely despised it. The only reason I'm going to keep it on my bookshelf is because it is a classic, and it is referenced in so many other books I have read that I feel like I need to keep it almost as a reference guide. But I actually despise the book. But don't let me scare you off from reading it. If you think the storyline of it sounds interesting, read it. Who knows? I'm not the best expert in the world on what books you are going to like. You have to decide that on your own. So explore books like Brave New World and see if you like it, and then form your own opinion, and then be truthful about it. If you loved it, tell people you loved it. If you hated it, let people know you hated it. And like I said, I'm proud to say my name's Kyle. I read Brave New World, and I absolutely hated this book. So I will see you next time, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if there's any classic books you've read that you really loved or you really hated, feel free to leave it in the comments. And also, maybe if there's some classic books you've never read and you want to get a little bit of a feedback on, maybe leave that in a comment and other people can let you know what they thought of that book. But I'm really looking forward to what your comments are, and I will see you next time.